Hello and welcome back to the class. Um, right now we're going to start creating our birthday poster. Finally, we're getting there. All right. So I hope you've been observing the tools and the information I've been releasing to you in the past tutorials. Those are really important information, that you need to for a power-packed graphic design career. I just had to use the word power packed anyway, but then you get my point. All right, so this right now I'm going to show you how to create create your artboard. Basically, your artboard is your workspace, your work area for you to have your designs done and things like that using Photoshop. So one of the fastest ways for you to do that is just to hit Control N. Control N will bring up this dialog box for you to set the size, the resolution, the color mode for your project. All right. So the second way to do that is to come up here to File and tap New. That will also do the same thing for you, okay, to create the same dialog box. All right, so when you've created your dialog box, you don't necessarily have to give the name for this document immediately, because when you tap Control S, you might need to enter the name again. All right, so you can just leave it as an untitled document for now. This place called presets, you can see a couple of options here where you can have default Photoshop size. When you click that, it just gives you a default Photoshop size basically. All right, but you can still alter the settings. That's where you have custom settings. You have US paper, you can see letter, legal, tabloid. So basically, depending on what you want to achieve. Okay, for those of you who are conversant with A4 paper size, A3, A5, A6, things like that, you can see those easy to use settings. So you can just choose any of them and you're good to go. And if you decide that you want to set your width or your height, maybe you want your width to be smaller, to be bigger than your height, well, you can do that after you've created a document by just simply flipping the document, and I'll show you that once I've created the work area. You can also select photo. You can see from the photo drop down, you can choose a size. You can see 8 by 10, 5 by 7, 4 by 6, 2 by 3. You can see other sizes here. Portrait landscape basically means that the width is wider than the height. Portrait simply means that the height is more than the width. That's simply what it means. All right, so you can also see this setting right here that says web. Okay, now this gives you default size for that is an expected size for website banners, but the thing is, you cannot limit yourself to these sizes, because most of these sizes you see here were made with respect to what websites were some years ago, but things have changed. People decide what size the image on their websites will be these days, so you cannot really depend on these settings for your website banner creation. Same thing goes for mobile and devices. You can see different sizes. These are actually with respect to screen sizes. So in today's world, we have higher sizes than this. We have the 1920 already in place. We have the 4K, 4000 and above. So we have different screen sizes now. So you really don't want to depend on those, except what you're working with already has those sizes, preset. And this is for film and video, depending on what you want to achieve basically. So I know the question in your head, can we create videos in Photoshop? Well, I'll answer that question as we progress in the tutorial classes. So for today's class, I'm going to be putting a custom setting. I usually like to set the parameters. We all know our normal SI units, basically, that most of us are taught in physics and in mathematics. We know our measurements, meters, millimeters, inches, centimeters, centiliter, all these kind of things. Yeah, so we have that in Photoshop, where you can determine, the size of your document with any of these parameters. I like to work with pixels. I don't know why, I just like to work with it anyway. So someone else may prefer to work with inches, depends on what you want. So it's up to you to do that. So I'm going to be creating this as a perfect square, right? Meaning that the aspect ratio for this document is 1:1. 1:1 means that both height and width are the same, are equal to 1. So that's why we call it aspect ratio 1:1. So I'm going to choose 1250. And how I was able to move that, you just saw the way I moved straight from width to pixels to height. I just hit the tab on your Mac and Windows. Tab key enables you to move around, toggle different boxes very fast. So I'm going to also set my height to 1250. Now I'm going to set my resolution. Now basically this resolution is a topic, but resolution is also understood as the number of dots per inch of a document, right? The number of dots per inch, also known as DPI. Now, since I'm using pixels, for my document, that dots in that DPI actually means pixel dots. I showed you earlier in the last video when I zoomed into that image, we saw several little boxes, and I told you that those boxes are the pixels that carry the information of the image, right? So those are the dots. So the number of pixel dots per inch, that's your resolution. So I'm going to set my resolution to 300, meaning there are going to be 300 dots per inch in my document. All right, so Photoshop knows how to calibrate that. Okay, Photoshop does that job for me. All I have to do is set my resolution to 300 and leave the rest for Photoshop to do. Great. So this is color mode. Very interesting. And for our design classes, we'll be dealing with these 3 color modes majorly. Okay, so I'll talk to you about this in one of the classes, so that I can teach you the relationship between the RGB, CMYK, and the grayscale. So I'll teach you the relationship between each of them and when to use which. So for this document, I'm going to be using the RGB color mode. I'm going to leave this to 8 bits, and I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Great. So now this is my work area. It's been created, and now we're going to go ahead and start creating our design. All right, so watch the next video and let's get started.